Yeah, we've just had Jean-François Copé, the party boss, giving a pretty brief, if not terse, speech. Basically, his conclusions on this election night. He offered his congratulations to the socialists, then, given that they have come out victorious. But he clearly wanted to turn the page in the 3-minute speech, basically to look to the future for the party. He's going to do that in three main ways. Firstly, he's going to be a responsible member of the opposition. That is now what the UMP is, given, of course, the current climate of crisis in the Eurozone and here in France. Very much wants to limit the powers of the socialists now that they actually do control the Senate, local government and now the National Assembly. That is unheard of in French politics. Second manner, really want to remobilise party activists at a grassroots level. Basically looking there towards the next local elections. That's in 2014. Basically, we know pretty much what the strategy there is, to really bring back many of the people that were so fed up with French politics that they did vote for the far-right National Front in the first round of the presidential election, and of course in these legislative elections too. Basically, the strategy there is to basically convince them that they can now vote for the UMP party. Basically, to do that, they're going to have to be focusing on who is the next leader of the party itself. He did say that he wanted to avoid any internal battles. The reason for that is he says this is not the moment, given the, as I mentioned, that climate of crisis here in France, both economic and to a certain extent political. As such, that is perhaps a warning for some of the other members of the party not to start shooting their mouth off, if you will, about who, in which direction.
I was going to say, Luke, I mean, is the blame game starting yet at the UMP?
Not necessarily yet. We know he's got the timetable for which hasn't actually been laid out, but he did announce that on Wednesday they will be having a meeting of the bureau, the political head honchos. They'll probably be laying out the blame to a certain extent there. They don't necessarily want to put name anybody that they hold responsible, because of course that could be a negative vision for the party for many voters around the country. Given that, of course, this is a bad result for them, but it's also a demonstration that they haven't succeeded in getting their message across, getting Nicolas Sarkozy's message across over the past 5 years. So they perhaps don't want to abandon many of the things that they did hold so dear in that period. Just to finish off on that timetable, they hope to have a congress by November, and the
Luke,
people
sorry
that
to
will be
interrupt
running.
you. Can I pick you up on the Sarkozy element there? Was there a feeling that perhaps that time has come, the policies were tired, people want a complete change, and is there any sign as to which direction that change might take? Maybe more towards the right?
Well, that is really very much the debate. You're quite right. Within the party itself, the party is likely to be torn in two different directions. It's not necessarily going to split into two different directions, but that will very much depend on who is the next leader, how strong they can be in keeping the party united. United was the key word from Jean-François Copé, to avoid those internal battles. As you mentioned, Nicolas Sarkozy, there is a degree of frustration amongst voters, not necessarily amongst the UMP. The UMP does rather consider that he is a positive element, and perhaps that's what's been lacking in this legislative campaign, is that he hasn't been there as the leader for the party. But you're quite right to point out in which direction could the party go. There is the so-called droite populaire, the popular right, which is the right wing of the UMP party itself. They are considered to be much closer to many of the values that the far-right National Front Party would usually defend, and as such there is perhaps a threat in some cases that they could well continue rightwards. Just to what extent the rest of the party follows that movement rightwards, well, that's what we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks and months, and perhaps by that Congress in November, which will now decide who is the next leader of the UMP Conservative Party.